know what legacy means.
It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Legacy of Westeros channel. I'm Zach here with Shawn, and this is going to be a little bit more extended of a show than what you're used to seeing here on this channel. Sometimes it can be as short as 10 to 15 minutes. We're gonna really dive into some Westerosi content tonight with House of the Empire. It's a Game of Thrones podcast that we started up not too long ago, and we're so excited to revamp and revitalize it here on this channel. And there's plenty of stuff from this world to talk about, Shawn. I mean, I'm particularly excited to talk about some of the stuff that's been developing with the Snow series, but we're also going to get a chance to talk about House of the Dragon, and even something that was announced when the Max relaunch over at HBO, Discovery, Warner Brothers, whatever they're calling themselves now. There was a whole new series announced as well. And so all of that and more are on the table tonight, and I'm excited.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to go over. Just wanted to start off by saying a big thank you to everybody out there who has taken a second and commented on our videos and click subscribe. The channel's very much still in its infancy. We're not even marketing it too hard, and you guys are responding, so that's appreciated. And you can probably expect one of these podcast episodes every couple of weeks or so. And it's just a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the topics that we cover in the standalone videos, as well as things that we don't. So I'm excited about that, man. And I'm excited, actually, because just like in our standalone videos, we have a multiple choice question to get to for tonight's video. Obviously, we're recording this. It's not live, but if there's enough interest at some point, live streams are something we would consider, schedules permitting, as Zach and I are both he's busier than I am. He's busier than I am, and I'm quite busy, so that makes it hard. But anyways, multiple choice question for this video is: what piece of future Westeros content are you most looking forward to? Is it A, House of the Dragon Season 2, B, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, or C, the Jon Snow show that we're about to talk about? And he didn't know this question was coming, and I'm going to throw him under the bus right away. But Zach, what one would you pick, man?
Oh, man. I mean, we were just talking about how all of these are on the table for our discussion tonight, and that's because we're both really excited to be talking about it. If I had to pick, I would probably say the Jon Snow show. Not because I'm not excited about either of the other two, but we know Kit Harrington and we know how passionate he is for that role, and we have seen that role portrayed so well over so many seasons. And so for him to be coming back and to hear about the process that he's been involved in with George R. R. Martin, it sounds like it has a lot of really great potential. And I'm just looking forward to what they could be doing with it. I am still in the process of doing research about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the stories of Sir Duncan the Tall and Egg. They sound like really great adventure tales, and I feel like they have a lot of great potential as well. And we've done some really deep dives episode by episode about House of the Dragon, and we know full well that season 2 is going to be a lot of battle sequences. This is where things are really, really going to hit the fan. So I'm hopeful about both of those things, but if I had to say most excited, it would probably be Snow.
Yeah, I think for me too, it's the Jon Snow show, which we're going to talk about here momentarily. And like, I'm really excited for House of the Dragon Season 2. But a chance and to go back and revisit that character, and as we are about to talk about quite possibly characters, I'm excited to dive back into that. I just, I have my concerns and reservations about that. But House of the Dragon season 2 is a close runner-up, and then third would be A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I'm a little surprised it got a full series order, although I believe it might end up only being one season. I'm not sure about that yet. We know it's going to be 6 episodes long. But hey, I'm up for more Westeros content as long as the same amount of effort and quality and production level is put into it, because I want to be just as immersed into that world as we already have been. You wouldn't want to take 2 steps back, or else it'd be, heavily frowned upon.
Right, right. And that's something that we have talked about both on air and off air, is that we really want the quality in addition to the quantity. And if it takes a little bit of time to get that quality, then okay. But I'm hopeful that they're able to strike that balance pretty well. I think it's something that this franchise has been able to do fairly successfully. There may be some that disagree with the notion that House of the Dragon season one wasn't worth the wait. I would be in the opposite camp. I think it was absolutely worth the wait, and so I'm regardless of how many episodes it ends up being, I'm hopeful that the wait will be worth it once again.
Yeah, I still haven't gone back and rewatched House of the Dragon yet, and it's something I've been really itching to do. And I think I'm going to finally do it here very soon. But before we move on, really quickly, to those of you watching, let us know down in the comment section down below which one is your favorite piece of Westeros content you're most looking forward to: House of the Dragon season 2, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, or the Jon Snow show. We would love to hear what you have to say. Anyways, man, that Jon Snow show, rumors seem to be going around from the places that like to cover a lot of the rumors and the leaks, etc. Channels like Talking Thrones and some other places out there who have a reputation of being right. There's been stuff over the last couple of months about the possibility of the Jon Snow show expanding on what it was originally intended to be. Now, it sounds like the original intention to be was, or for it to be, was a limited series specifically about that character. You might have got like Tormund and Ghost involved, but there really wouldn't have been anyone else. It would have been all Beyond the Wall and different explorations around there. Now it sounds as if possibly other cast members have been contacted about the possibility of returning for this series. Now, it wouldn't be all of them. It wouldn't be full scale Game of Thrones season 9. But it is starting to sound, man, like the possibility of this show being more of a soft sequel to Game of Thrones is becoming very realistic, just with Jon as the central character. And I think that was bound to happen if you were going to bring in other characters that were previously in the season. I don't know if that means, if it's a Sam or a Davos or both, or Arya or Sansa. Like, I think all those characters are realistic possibilities for this. I think the other thing we need to remember here, which is I mentioned in our video last week, is every piece of Game of Thrones content that has either come out or has been officially announced, which does not include the Jon Snow show, has some sort of source material it's pulling from. This does not. So you're already putting Kit Harrington and George R. R. Martin, who is very, very picky in terms of what he's going to do and where certain, story directions go. I do wonder if the fact that there isn't source material about events that happen after the Game of Thrones show, which he did not write the ending to, like how difficult that's going to be to put together. And I do think they're having some difficulty with that. But at the same time, if it means expanding the idea, waiting a little bit longer and getting more of a sequel, I think I'd be down for it. How about you, man?
I always envisioned this being a soft sequel. I don't know why, but when I heard that the Snow show was in the works, I just assumed that it was going to be some sort of continuation of what we previously got. And that's not because I think that the creators lack the creativity to come up with something else. I think it's the Kit Harrington effect. When I heard that Kit Harrington was attached to the project, I just automatically assumed that he was not just going to be the star, but he was going to be an executive producer. He was going to be a creative influence on where his character goes and who his character interacts with. And that naturally means that he's going to be interacting with other characters from the series. It means that you're going to have Tormund. It means you're going to have Sam. It means you're going to have Sansa. Those are all people that are integral into what makes Jon Snow tick. They are the people that are closest to him. They are his family. And you need to have that type of connectivity to Jon's characters in order to understand Jon himself. And so to have a Snow series that was completely beyond the wall with one or two characters never sounded like it was going to gain a whole lot of popularity or traction anyways. So I'm on board with this notion. I'm on board with the idea of him going south of the wall and going on new adventures. I think that it's something that would be good for his character and it would be good for Game of Thrones because he was the character that most Game of Thrones fans ended up gravitating to in the first place. And so I think that is the best way to reach a particular target audience that hasn't seen him for several years and want to know what's going on with his life next. It feels completely logical to me. I'm surprised that this is just now getting leaked slash announced because I felt like this is something they should have been doing from the beginning.
Yeah, I think we're all sort of waiting on what happens with these Warner Brothers upfronts. I know there was a rumor that George R. R. Martin, Kit Harrington might be on hand to unveil the new show, just in terms of it being officially announced. I think people need to remember the earliest you're seeing this thing's 2025. Like we're already in 2023,
Right.
and like late 2025 is the earliest you're seeing it. So patience.
Even if they announced it and started filming and then went into post, like there's a lot of dominoes that need to fall before we actually end up seeing this show.
I can't help but wonder if the way the show ends up being structured is it starts off with, hey, it's the Jon Snow show, and you have this, MacGuffin adventure that needs to happen, something that he needs to go do, and which leads him south of the wall, which causes other stuff. Like, I do think they're going to be in a position where they can't get everybody back just because of trying to control costs. So I think you're going to have to be very clever in terms of who you choose to get back. Availability is a big thing too. Like, I know he's not affected by it, but like Pedro Pascal just signed on for the sequel to Gladiator, right? So
Yeah.
those that wanted, more FaceTime in Star Wars, guess what? That's out, and that was probably out before now, anyways. Like, so like getting talent on first look deals where they're the priority is not an easy thing to do. And I just wonder if some of that cast is still hesitant to return. Like there's a lot of characters that are still at play, right? So I just wonder if it starts off as this Jon Snow adventure, and the further we get to the adventure or into the adventure, the more other characters pop up. So maybe they're not popping up as series regulars, but rather a couple of appearances a season sort of thing. Almost like a road.
Okay, but let's look at this rather logically though. What are some of these characters doing right now? Christopher Hivju, who is the actor for Tormund, the most recent thing I have seen him do was Cocaine Bear.
He was funny in that.
He was freaking hilarious in Cocaine Bear.
He was hilarious in Cocaine Bear for sure.
But that's like the most recent thing I've seen him in. So when you're talking about availability, would you rather see Tormund from Game of Thrones? Or do you want to see Olaf from Cocaine Bear? I want to see more Tormund then I want to see a guy getting beat up by a bear that is high off his ass. So when we're talking about availability, I think we do need to like factor in what are they actually like being lined up for, because I feel like if he had to choose between going back to the world of Game of Thrones and being in productions like Cocaine Bear, I think I know which one I would choose anyway. And then what has John Bradley been in recently? Like he was
A
in
couple of things, actually, I believe.
he he was in a movie last year called Moonfall that got 5 stars on IMDb. He was in a movie called Marry Me that got 6 stars. He was in something called The Railway Children Return, which got 5.5 stars. He is going to be in a production called The Three Body Problem, which sounds really, really awful when I think about it. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. That's what he's going to be in a 2023 series
Hang on.
this year.
That's Benioff and Weiss, I'm pretty sure.
Is it really?
You might want to check that out. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure that's their big thing they've been working on post
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Yep, I see Benioff and Weiss
Yeah.
with writing credits.
Yeah, so
like
I'm not shocked that they're going to go back to that well.
It doesn't surprise me either. But that's what I'm saying is like they're going back to an actor that they have already previously worked with. He's going back to a place that is of comfort. It makes a lot of sense for him to go back to a franchise that he's already comfortable with when he's been in 5 and 6 star productions ever since.
I think the biggest one that you'd have a hard sell on, just because he's been pretty vocal against it, would be Peter Dinklage.
Mm-hmm.
And if Peter Dinklage isn't going to be there, I think you got to keep Jon away from King's Landing until you're able to convince him to be there, or Tyrion's away on this business or whatever. But like, it can't be every time you
he's
show
in
up in King's
Essos on a
Landing.
diplomatic mission or something like that.
Yeah, like he's the big one that I think, enough dollars and cents might change his mind, but he's been pretty vocal about not wanting to do it anymore.
Did you see him in the trailer for the new Hunger Games movie?
No, I haven't even seen that trailer yet. I'm so far behind, man. Anything that's happened in the last week that's not hockey related basically count me out.
Hashtag priorities.
Yeah.
Apparently he's playing the character who designed the very first Hunger Games.
Oh,
he is the game designer, the one who created the arena and designed how the games get played out.
So he's a sick fuck.
Yeah, basically, more or less.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage. I mean, dream casting if the material is good. Mm-hmm. But like, give me Peter Dinklage in a Star Wars movie. I still think there's a room for that somewhere.
Yeah, totally. Put him in an Ewok suit. Let's see what he can do.
I think you can afford cheaper Ewok talent, or Jawa talent. No, I mean, I think Tormund was always like he has to be there, and why wouldn't he?
Yeah, he was with Jon north of the Wall. He needs to be with him whenever their next adventure starts up.
Honestly, give me Jon, Tormund, Sam, and Davos on some weird adventure with new characters. And then if other guys get sprinkled in as we go, great. But like, I'd love the idea that Arya hasn't been back and has gone missing, and a ragtag group needs to go west of Westeros. That to me would be a badass show.
I think so. And it takes you someplace that you've never been before. We've been to Essos several times. We've been to Vaes Dothrak with Daenerys in the first half of the show. So we kind of know what's east of Westeros. And with the piece arranged with most of the wildlings, there's really not much north of the Wall really to do either. So, like, aside from the rescue mission in Dorne, we haven't seen a whole lot of Dorne. And aside from maybe a few scattered wildlings that are causing problems, there's a lot of peace in the Seven Kingdoms right now. So I could see it very much as like a Voyage of the Dawn Treader type of adventure for you Narnia fans out there. You head to some place that's not your native land and take it someplace that you as a viewer have never seen or experienced before. And honestly, that ties right into the lack of source material. I could be mistaken, but I don't think Martin has really written anything about what is west of Westeros. So you've got a completely clean slate by doing that. You don't have to worry about what kind of diplomacy is happening in Essos. You don't really have to worry about what kind of drama is happening in the rebuilding of Westeros under King Bran. Like, none of that has to be a factor in the story that you tell. And you save money by not having Arya appear until like the season finale or whatever. Like, she makes a glorified cameo in the final episode, and everything else has just been adventuring leading up to finding her. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah, there's the whole Drogon side of things too. Where did he go? You know,
Are we still beating on
what's
that harp?
I mean, there's a reason the might not be George's doing, but there's a reason the dragon was left alive, right? And like one of the big rumors that came out last year after the show was announced to be in development was that we would see, you know, what has come of Jon Snow's life. Does he have his own family? And one of them was that he might have had a daughter, and being his lineage, that daughter might have had the Targaryen blonde hair. And what if he's haunted by the image of his daughter and how that affects him growing up? Similar to how Ned, you know, was in a way haunted by John, and you know, him being Ned's sister's kid and how close they were. And I think, you know, that's probably a little more fan fiction out there, but I wouldn't be against a story like that because, you know, you're sort of leaning back to the original Game of Thrones, but a different spin on it.
John has been so burned by his love interest, if you'll pardon the pun. You know, he fell for Egret, and that fell flat on his face. He ended up falling for his aunt, and that didn't go well either. And he's got a history of being a devotee of some very, very strict policies when he was a man of the Night's Watch. I I could see him not necessarily, performing any kind of surgeries on himself, but an emotional eunuch, if you will. Someone who has just kind of sworn off that side of things and is focusing on self improvement and the improvement of his community and those around him. I think he's got enough on his plate taking care of his people that I don't know if he really needs to have his own family in order to be complete. I think Tormund is his family. I think Sansa's his family. I think knowing that his brother is ruling the kingdom, I think that's enough family for one fella after all the stuff that he's been through.
Yeah, it could also be, you know, continued torture though in terms of the stuff that he has gone through. So it'll be interesting. They have many different places they can go. I do think from like just a creative standpoint, and then we do need to get on to our next topic. I like to be George R. R. Martin in that position where you were basically ousted from the writer's room and didn't have really any involvement other than cliff notes in 6, 7, 8. Um, it'd be weird writing the continuation to that while still finishing your books that are, you know, just a completely different story at that point. That's a lot for one person.
It can be, but I don't know if I have a lot of sympathy for it. I know I'm going like kind of
Oh, I don't
counter.
have sympathy for it, to be clear.
I feel like I'm going against the grain on back-to-back takes, but this man has signed away his livelihood to production studios. He knew what he was getting in for when he okayed having it made into a series. There was very strict, very deliberate wording so that other franchises and other spin-offs could be made, so that multiple seasons could be created and produced, and in exchange, he's getting paid for it. I don't know if I have very much sympathy for his creative licensing, being affected by the production studios. If he didn't want that to happen, he wouldn't have signed the freaking contract in the first place. So he wanted this, he wanted the money, and he's getting paid. He's getting EP credits. He's getting based on the books by George R.R. Martin in every fucking episode. I'm sorry, I don't have any sympathy for Martin having to work. He doesn't have to work. He doesn't have to work on the Snow series. He's choosing to work on it because it's a passion project. He doesn't have to work on it. He could just get another byline in the credits that say that this is based on the books, and he gets a paycheck for it. But I think he gets a bigger paycheck by being more involved in it, by being able to be on set and be in the writer's room and whatever. He gets more of a cut by being more involved. This is completely financial. The creativity side of things went out the window with season 7. And I don't know if I feel sorry for the man, because he's not only going to get residual from reruns and merchandise and new productions and all that sort of thing. He's going to make a buttload of money whenever he finally publishes the book too, so that the diehards can read about how he, quote unquote, actually envisioned it. Maybe he didn't actually envision this. Maybe he saw what Benioff and Weiss did and was like, oh, fuck that. I'm not going to make that. I'm going to write something better than that. And people are going to eat that shit up. They are going to read the hell out of those books because they want to see if Martin's was better. They want to see if he was right in saying that this stuff was dog shit. And guess what? People are going to go back and watch the show again so that they can trash on it. But guess what? He gets residual from the reruns too. When people go back onto HBO and they start watching his show over and over again, those statistics click on Warner Brothers and HBO, and they start realizing, oh shit, we got 1 million views on this episode. Okay, you get a little bit of that. You get a little cut of that. You get a little cut of that. And guess who else gets a cut of that? George R.R. Martin. I'm sorry. I don't have any sympathy for it, because regardless of how this plays out, the man is getting paid, and he's getting paid big. So, congratulations, sir. You signed away your creativity and you're getting money for it. That is like the best possible scenario that you could possibly think of. You sign a deal and you get paid for it. Oh, guess what? That's the way the industry works.
I do wonder how much Warner Brothers Discovery will sit there though, and like, I think people I 100% believe this project is coming. It's not just going away. It's way too big. But when you talk about the projects that could make Warner Brothers Discovery the most money, this is number one on the list. A
Oh, hell
sequel
yeah.
to Game of Thrones.
Hell yeah.
So don't be surprised if this thing enters development hell in order to get it right. And if it means we wait longer for it, I'm fine with it. But just get the fucking thing right, And I mean, there are things that worry me. We'll move to this topic next. Like House of the Dragon. It's going to be 8 episodes in season 2. I'm firmly in the category of, as long as it holds the quality, I'll deal with the fact of it being 2 less episodes. I know there's a rumor out there right now that suggests in terms of the allotted time that was in season 1 for 10 episodes, is it might be the same for 8 episodes, but contractually the actors are contracted by episode, not by time. And so I kind of wonder if they're playing the game there a little bit. Like you were just talking about it. Technically, a lot of people forget that Game of Thrones season 7 was supposed to be 13 episodes. And they broke it down into 2 seasons, which took like 4 years. So,
right.
So I don't know. I was worried we're going to lose some of the story and get a little bit too fast forward again. And, but I think as long as the quality is there, man, I'm fine with it. And hey, if it means every episode is going to be 15 minutes longer, sign me up for that.
I'll believe that when I see it. historically we get all of this hype of shows that are streaming exclusives that promise episode lengths of a certain time parameter, and then they don't deliver. I'm looking at you, Mandalorian. I am looking at even The Last of Us. There were certain episodes of The Last of Us that went super long and they were super amazing, and then there were other episodes where I was like, "Wait, that's it?" And so I will believe it when I see it. But I am very hopeful to see it because this is going to be a season that is full of action. The entire first season was build up. Get to know these people, get to know why they hate each other so that you can choose which side you're on, you can sympathize with different characters, and you feel a deeper sense of loss whenever they die. This is going to be that season where a lot of characters die. This is going to be that season where there's a lot of epic battles, big budget pyrotechnics. And if they have to condense it into 8 episodes, that means we're getting a big battle every 2 or 3 episodes this entire season. And then you're dealing with the aftermath and preparing for the next battle in between episodes. Like seriously, there's enough battles in the Dance of Dragons that you could theoretically have a build-up episode in the first one, have have a battle episode in episode 2, have a recovery and aftermath and prepping for the next battle in the third episode, and boom, you got another battle in episode 4. We could seriously see ourselves alternating extreme battle sequences every 2 episodes in an 8 episode season. And if that's the case, sign me the hell up.
Yeah, it came out the other day that season 2 is going to shoot significantly less time than season 1. But that's not a surprise. Season 1 filmed deep in the middle of COVID, and that alone, lengthened your production schedule massively. Also, for like Winterfell fans, I'm assuming like we're days away from seeing pictures of a Winterfell set, like days.
Hey boy.
So we know that Winterfell's returning. I'm excited for House of the Dragon season 2, man. There's a lot of financial stuff going on with Warner Brothers Discovery. And it's a business. I get it. I just hope that, creative choices are put first. The second that you start watering down your on-screen Westeros product, the second the value of the product slips, in my opinion.
I wonder how slippery that slope is, though, because as diehards like us, with diehards like us, we may have a smaller margin for error than casual fans do, and it could be a gradual descent if we're talking about quality versus quantity. And so if the quality does decline as the episodes decline, it may take a season or 2 and it may take another show with, just a few episodes before the public starts to catch on and starts to criticize. And if that's the case, then we could end up seeing a couple of years, 2, 3 years of what we would consider subpar Game of Thrones content before the public kind of catches on and decides, hey, this wasn't just a one-time incident. Season 2 wasn't just, a blip on the radar. Snow season 1 was short and not what I expected either. And, Dunk and Egg wasn't as fun and whimsical as I thought it was going to be. There's just got to be like multiple manifestations over the course of several years before we start to actually call out that dissent. We may be the whistleblowers, but I don't know if the public is going to catch on as quickly as we would. And I'm not saying that the public is stupid. I'm saying they're probably a little more patient than we are. They're probably willing to give it a chance, willing to give it another season before they make any kind of judgments like that. So if that is a dissent that we're worried about, I don't really know if there's going to be an adaptation on Warner Brothers Discovery part for at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we spoke about fairly recently was simply the fact that you have House of the Dragon season 2, and it's going to take from the time season 1 ended almost 2 years to see the next season.
Right.
And reports lately seem to suggest that not only are they really close to having season 3 greenlit and it's already being written, but that filming could begin in late spring, early summer next year. If that is the case, you will have filming going on during the same time as season 2 is airing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is an overlap that doesn't typically happen with Game of Thrones. And it also means, barring disaster, you won't be waiting another 2 years for a season of House of the Dragon, which I think is a good thing. Honestly, if there's one thing that I think hurts shows, it's if it's a show that has a ton of momentum, you're asking a lot for your audience to wait 2 years. It's not the same as waiting for a big motion picture movie. I can deal with the wait better than I thought I'd be able to. I mean, we're almost halfway there already. But I do think it's asking a lot of your audience.
Well, I mean, the final season came out, and this is just an example. The final season came out while I was in grad school, and I made a reference to Game of Thrones, very subtle, but I thought it was clever. Um, I was getting ready to go down the elevator, and somebody was in it. It was a small group of my classmates, and as the door was closing, I just called out, "Hold the door! Hold the door!" Like Hodor, and nobody got it. And I just kind of was like, "Nobody? Game of Thrones?" Like once I got in, and one of my classmates was like, "Oh yeah, that's a thing, isn't it?" And like the final season had only happened a few months prior. Or maybe it was season 7. Maybe it was season 7 that happened.
I could see it being the final season though, because like the character dies in the 6th season, but in reality, in terms of real time, 4 years has passed since the character has been around at that point almost. So I
Right.
could see why people might not have gotten that one.
Right. But my point is their attention span is so not there at
Oh.
times.
For sure.
And even when a show is somewhat fresh, you can't expect to make a reference that people are going to get. It's not a reasonable expectation of a reasonable audience. Now, those of you that are tuning into this that have made it this far, you're listening and you're watching because you love Game of Thrones and you want to hear other people geek out about Game of Thrones, and hopefully you're satisfied with it, and hopefully you're going to hit like and comment and subscribe and all that other good shit and keep coming back. But that doesn't mean that everybody wants those kinds of references. That doesn't mean everybody wants those kinds of discussions. And so when you're trying to appeal to people like us who are super fans that are talking about it all the time, and you're also trying to appeal to people like my wife who just watch it when it's on, then you have to be able to meet the expectations of varying patience levels. You and I are probably comfortable waiting for a year and a half, 2 years. I am pretty certain that we're going to have to rewatch House of the Dragon season 1 and maybe binge through it whenever it's time for season 2, because it's not going to be fresh. It's not going to be something that is like on top of our memory. It's not something that's been a part of our pop culture, our meme culture, our discussions around the house. And so it's going to take some doing to kind of get back into that groove. And the longer your turnaround time is between seasons, the harder it is to, I don't know, retain your audience's interest and attention.
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing, especially just in society in 2023. Is the attention span is just not where it used to be. I know even when we're doing content on here, like we talk timing now more than we ever used to.
I blame TikTok.
Fucking TikTok.
You have like statistics have shown that you've got like 3 seconds to grab your audience's attention. And you could have the best 3-minute video on TikTok ever, but if you don't grab your audience in the first 3 seconds, they're going to keep fucking scrolling. So like you've got a very, very narrow margin to retain people's attention. And if it takes 3 seconds to capture people's attention on TikTok, they're not going to wait 3 fucking years for a season of TV.
It's something that needs to change. I mean, Stranger Things fans waited about that amount of time for their new season. And I think them being proactive and not allowing this to I mean, the fact is, I wish they would have had more confidence in season 1 to begin with, and we wouldn't have had this problem. But they didn't, and they wanted to wait, and then season 1 blew up. So I think anything they can do to cut down on that time while still maintaining a high level of quality would be beneficial. Before we get off here, man, it would be a misstep on our behalf if we didn't at least talk briefly about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, a newly announced Westeros-related TV show on HBO that's going to follow Dunk and Egg, the novellas that were written by George R. R. Martin. They're not even all done either, by the way. So I don't believe anyways. I'm pretty sure there's 1 or 2 more to come with that, but I could be wrong on that front. I thought he said he was doing more. But you know, the show, again, I don't have the details in front of me, man. I've seen mixed things about this, that it would be multiple seasons, but the last thing I read is it might be 6 episodes and done. And I wouldn't be totally against that if that's all the time you need, because then you're essentially buying yourself a little more time for Snow, maybe at that point, because you know, by the time this thing comes out, you're looking at 2024, I think I read. So I don't know. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I hope the quality's still there, but I'd also like to see them do something a little bit different with this one.
Well, here's the deal. I have a little issue with the idea of it being 6 episodes and done, because these novellas are a total of 3. The Night of the Seven Kingdoms has 3 published novellas. So if you're doing 6 episodes and done, that would basically mean that you're only doing 2 episodes per novella. And I don't really know if that's enough time. I don't think you necessarily need 6 episodes per novella, just based on the description that I'm reading on the Wiki of Ice and Fire. But I really don't think 2 episodes and done is enough to be worthwhile for the production, the casting, all that sort of thing that you have to do. And there's time jumps in between them. There's a good 1.5 to 2 years between the first novella, The Hedge Knight, and the second one, The Sorn Sword. So I don't know how they would do that with casting, because this is a young Aegon Targaryen that is hanging out with Duncan the Tall. Are they just gonna assume that this kid is not hitting a growth spurt, or are they just gonna assume that, you know, we're a dumb audience and we don't know that there's a time shift between these 2 types of adventures? I don't know. I am still reading up on it. That's one of my hesitations, is I don't want to sound like an expert on it when I don't really know a whole lot about it. But based on what I have read from the Wiki of Ice and Fire, based on what I've read from certain threads online, just based on what I can observe of these stories, I think they deserve more than 2 episodes each. So I'm with you that it may be considered a stopgap for Snow, just so that people have Westerosi content. But I also think that this show has a lot of potential. It looks very whimsical. It looks very adventurous. It looks like it has a lot of Westerosi lore attached to it, particularly the Hedge Knight. I think it has a lot of potential, and it would be a shame to only have that to have that potential tapped into just 6 episodes.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't be so shocked if it turned out that one of the novellas was 1 season. You know, maybe season 1 is just the Hedge Knight. You know, that might That might make a little more sense. I'm just, the Snow show seems like a given it's going to happen. So I was a little surprised that this one got the green light.
Mhm.
But I'm intrigued to see what they do. This is basically smack dab right in the middle between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. So that's an interesting time slot. Helps bridge that gap a little bit more.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's Westeros related content. Ryan Condal's involved. George R. R. Martin's involved. I'm basically in. I'm not saying I'm over the moon because I don't know a bunch of the content in terms of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. But I have no doubt it'll be done and done with care.
There's adventures and a lot of exploring of Westeros that takes place from a casual knight's point of view. That sounds really exciting to me. It almost reminds me this is going to be a really deep dive, and people may not recognize it. The Lion King 1.5 or The Lion King 3, depending on how the publication comes out. But it's the story of the Lion King from the perspective of Timon and Pumbaa. And it's hilarious, and it's adventurous, and it's character driven about characters that you don't feel like got enough screen time in the first iteration. This is kind of how I envision Dunk and Egg potentially being. You have two characters that may not have gotten a whole lot of screen time if they made a Game of Thrones type show set in this time frame, because there's princes and kings and queens and other knights involved and all sorts of backstabbing and politicking. And then over here, you've just got a knight and his squire going off on an adventure. And I think that has a lot of potential. There's a lot of romance, particularly in the second novella. There is a particular type of duel that takes place in the first novella that I read about that had not happened in over 100 years in Westeros. And Dunk and Egg are a part of that particular trial by combat that hasn't happened in a century. So there's a lot of really compelling sounding storytelling that takes place in this series. And like I said, I think it would be a shame for Martin's time, Condal's time, the viewers' time, the production studio's time to waste all of this potential on just 6 episodes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think casting is always important, but on a show where two characters are going to be the primary focus, you better cast this right, because all it takes is for one of them to not be appealing for the audience to have half your audience check out.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they did with The Last of Us. People, like, the focus group said people love Pedro Pascal right now, and the focus group said they would be on board with Bella Ramsey. And, you put the two of them together, it's a dynamite duo that goes on an adventure for 9 episodes, and it plays out fantastically. But if people didn't care for Bella Ramsey, or if they thought Pedro Pascal was overacting or something, then The Last of Us would not be as good as it turned out to be. So when you're doing a dynamic duo adventure story, you do need to cast it right. I agree.
Man, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Episode 1 of House of the Empire is in the books. The relaunched House of the Empire, a part of the Legacy of Westeros channel. You'll get one of these every couple of weeks. We ran a little long on this one simply because there was a lot to catch up on. So if you haven't yet, check out our newest video on the channel where we discuss more of the season 3 filming, an early start date, what that could mean. There's a brand new multiple choice question in that video that you might want to check out and give your thoughts on. And if you haven't yet, be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, slash the bell as long as it doesn't make you go mad and all that other good shit. So really appreciate the support. Zach, what do you got going on?
Oh man, I got a lot going on. The high school baseball team that I do radio for is in the playoffs. They just got their division championship the other day, so they are the number 1 seed in their bracket, and they're in for a pretty wild ride in the baseball side of things. And then I just got brought on as the play-by-play guy for a local minor league soccer team as well. So I'm doing a lot of sports this May and into the summer. and doing a lot of stuff here, and still kicking it on some other platforms like IPC every now and then when we have the time. So just go follow me at that username you see on the lower third there, Zach the Voice, and you'll be able to find out what I'm talking about and when I'm talking about it.
Sounds great, man. Definitely check what Zach's got going on out. Check us out on Twitter at Legacy Westeros. We're still in the midst of getting that started. You can also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. Zach and I decided today that our Patreon videos from this channel will be called Beyond the Wall. It's a nod to my favorite episode of Game of Thrones, and it's fitting. So
Very fitting.
Be on the lookout for content coming there, likely bi-weekly when we record one of these. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it, man. You want to take us home?
I sure can. Thanks again to everybody that tuned in.
Wrong guy.
You muted yourself. It said host has muted your mic, and I was like, oh shit, what did I do wrong? What button did I push? Nah, it's all good and it's all fun. Hope that you all have fun tuning into this episode. We're looking forward to bringing you more stuff just like this, and like he said, hit that subscribe button so you know exactly when new content is posted here on the channel. But that is going to do it for this episode of House of the Empire on the Legacy of Westeros channel. For Shawn, I'm Zach, thanking you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time when the Empire returns.